What's that? Fine.
So it's 3:40, and I want to welcome you to our session with Lieutenant Stephanie Young, who I'll introduce in just a second. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Thank you all for being here. There are free Coca-Cola beverages in the coolers, so help yourself at any time. There's also a sign-in sheet going around, so make sure you sign that, not only for class, but we also have some good giveaways at the end, so that's how we select our winners. This is one of the few times you'll hear a faculty member ask you to tweet during class, but tweet during class. So we're using the hashtag UTSMW. It's a great way to stay connected via social during Social Media Week. It's also a great way for you to ask questions. So I'll help get the questions to Stephanie whenever it comes time for the Q&A. All right? Don't want to take any more of her time, though, because Stephanie is a dynamic presenter, so we're going to give her the time. This is Lieutenant Stephanie Young behind me. I'm going to borrow the words of Dr. Leventius. Stephanie is the voice of the Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard. So I heard her in the hallway. I was like, got to steal that for you. She is technically currently serving as social media specialist in the U.S. Coast Guard Office of Public Affairs in D.C., and she is in charge of a 4-person social media team and runs national campaigns and engagement on the service's tools, including WordPress, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Flickr. So she's a perfect speaker for this week's session. So let's all welcome Lieutenant Young and give her your attention, and then we'll turn it over to Q&A later. Okay? Thanks.
Thanks for everyone coming today. I had some lunch with a few of the students. I see a few faces, so it's good to see you guys again. Can you guys all hear me? Yeah, I can't hear myself. It's very weird up here. So I have to say that I'm really excited to be here, and I heard in my introduction that Courtney is and I'd be remiss if I using the tools. So if you want to say hi to @Chris Lagan, he wished he could be here today, but he couldn't. So he's on Twitter if you want to say hello to him. I wanted to start off by just saying a little bit about the Coast Guard. So who here has heard of the Coast Guard? Yes, good, good. All right. Who here can tell me what is a mission that the United States Coast Guard does? What do we do? You got to get a hand raised. Somebody, call something out. What does the Coast Guard do? Yes. Great. Homeland Security, Ports and Waterways Infrastructure. Nice. That's usually not the first one. The first one is usually search and rescue. So we've got one, right? So how about who can tell me all of our missions? We got one. Can you name all of them? No? All right. So we have a lot of missions in the United States Coast Guard, and so can anyone tell me how many missions? If you can't name them all. So how about we try Google? Let's get a little Google action going. Who here can be the quickest searcher to figure out how many missions the United States Coast Guard has? Nobody? Statutory missions of the United States Coast Guard? No? Not 11. Who said 11? Yay! We have 11 statutory missions in the United States Coast Guard. Awesome job. So now you can all say that. You're now brand ambassadors. You can all say the Coast Guard is amazing, and they have 11 statutory missions. So we want all of the hands in the room to be raised when we ask how many can name the 11 statutory missions of the United States Coast Guard. Why? Because we work for you. You are the American taxpayer. You are the American public. We do our missions each and every day for you. So that's why we use social media. It's an essential tool to help us educate and inform about the Coast Guard's missions. And that's why we don't just love social media, we need it. So for those, quick little video to say who we are. This is Aids to Navigation, one of our statutory missions. Here is someone who's returning from a patrol in the Middle East. Some aviation, Coast Guard helicopter. introduce one of our rescue swimmers. Yeah, I love this video. It makes me want to join the Coast Guard all over again. So informing the public about the Coast Guard through social media lets us both achieve our mission and inform taxpayers that dollars are well spent. And that's basically why we do what we do. And really, we can tie it back to the mission. And we talk about public engagement and public education. Reduces our search and rescue workload. It helps us eliminate the number of unnecessary deaths in recreational boating and in the commercial fishing industry. And public awareness can also help the Coast Guard combat drug smugglers, protect the homeland, intercept alien migrants, identify poachers in America's waterways, and on through our 11 mission sets. So, informing and educating the American taxpayer is why I do what I do. But as a Coast Guard, we don't need to just educate and inform, we need to serve them. And as we save lives and defend our nation each and every day, we can't use social media as a transactional engine or a sales machine, right? So your typical brand is using it to get returns. Instead, we use our social media to build, engage, and activate. And when we say build, we're talking about building the place people want to go to. People go to for authentic, relevant, timely information. When we engage, once the people are there, we engage them not as fans, but as members of a community. And we'll get to that, the word community. And then activate. Once a crisis hits, this community becomes a community of action. And they're going to be part of our team, amplifying critical information to protect lives and property. And that's how we'll end this journey through Coast Guard social media. So we're going to start with build. Oh, is there an echo? This is what we created when we first came on about 4 years ago. It's basically what we call the right tool at the right level to the right audience. And this is basically our wonky way of saying this is what we're going to use to who and where. So we see here there's a different level of where the Coast Guard operates, national programs, district, and unit. So I'm at national. And we use the 5 tools that you see to the right. We use WordPress, Flickr, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And then as it goes down through the district level or to the unit level, units are the small boat stations, the air stations. They're incorporated into those communities. As they use it, Facebook is the best tool because they're deeper into the community and they can provide that level of engagement. But they don't have the time and resources, so they can't have the entire suite of tools. We amplify their messages up at the national level with nationally relevant information. So we've been using this right level, right tool, right audience since 2010, and we have just recently launched Instagram. Instagram is our 6th tool, so I had to put that big over all the other tools because it's new to us. So we talked about build, and as we're building, I talked about timely, relevant, engaging post. So we've built this place, and we want our communities to come there. We want people to come there. So let's talk about a few examples of what we've used. So I'm going to show you a series of 3 pictures, and I want you to tell me, I'll describe them very briefly, which one you think had the most success. And we're going to do success, right? Because what is success? For us, that's going to be the one that engaged the most fans, right? So likes, comments, or shares. So we have the badass boat picture. It's doing a high-speed maneuver, it's in a port, and it's defending the homeland. Then we've got a picture of a float plan. A float plan is what we use for boating safety. A float plan is what you fill out so people know where the Coast Guard is to come rescue you. And the third is stacks of cocaine. So who here was the most engaging? The float plan. Nobody? Oh, for boating safety. What about cocaine? Who thinks cocaine? All right, cool. So I thought it was cocaine as well. But if you answered cocaine, you'd be wrong. It was actually the float plan. And it's so boring, right? Who here knew what a float plan was before I showed you that picture? Yes. Yay, we've got a boater. The river's right here. We need to emphasize this point. When you go out on the water, you fill out this float plan. It's part of our new app coming out next month. And it tells you, it tells your family and friends where you are. So when you don't show up and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we need to come find you, we know where you were supposed to go. So public service announcement over. Let's get back to this. Why did the float plan work? I've said it before. There's 3 reasons why we're talking about content. Who can say why the float plan would have been better than badass boat and stacks of cocaine?
The float plan engages the audience.
Right. So it was engaging because it was relevant. And why was it relevant? It was relevant because we put it on the first day of summer, on a Saturday morning when people were going out on the water. And we used that as a talking point to say, it's the first day of summer, you're going out on the water. Here's a float plan, use it. And so it was relevant to the audience, right? Cocaine maybe is relevant to a few of the audience, but float plans, big time relevance. And it was in the top 10 posts of the year, that dinky little float plan picture. But use it next time you're on the river. So this is the next one. Let's talk about which one's the most engaging here. Baby Coastie, baby seal that we rescued, or a graphic. Who thinks baby Coastie? We said every Coast Guardsman needs a break. No baby Coastie? All right, what about baby seal? A little bit of baby seal? It's cute, right? We rescued it off the coast of Hawaii. Who says graphic? Okay, great. And so you and the black, you said it's the graphic. Why do you think it was the graphic? Oh, yeah, behind. Yeah. You're not the only guy. You're a man with the iPhone headset, so in the future.
You said engaging. I said the graphic because of the 223rd birthday thing.
What? Perfect. You should be on our team. So the reason why this was the most successful is because it was timely. We put the so this was relevant. This was the most engaging because it was timely. We put this out on the morning of our service's birthday. So we celebrate our service's birthday, August 4th, 1790, and because it was timely. If I put this out today, this morning, April 1st, when everyone's playing jokes about Pokemon hunters on Google, nobody really cares that the Coast Guard existed in August 4th, 1790. So what made this engaging to our fans, more engaging, this was the most engaging post of the year, actually. It reached more than 1 million people, and Baby Coastie had 40,000 reach, and Baby Seal 40,000 as well. So this is going to be the last one. These are going to be hard because they're videos and we're not going to be able to see them. So this is a cutter off the Atlantic. It shows you a little bit of waves and surf and people on a boat. This is a rescue basket. It's kind of, you're outside of it, you're seeing it take place. And then the third is where you feel like you're aboard the aircraft. So who thinks the Atlantic cutter? Who thinks the rescue basket? Who thinks the Hercules airplane? Oh, Hercules airplane. So who raised their hand for the Hercules airplane? Yes. Why do you think that was the most engaging?
Honestly, I raised my hand because I think it's the one that I would have chosen.
Yes. Why would you choose this one?
Like you're part of it.
It's part of it. Oh, you can work for my team too. That's amazing. Yes. So this video that we posted, it actually takes you inside of the cockpit, right? And so we're going to see that. I'll show you what that's like. It's so simple. It's like hardly any audio, right? You're like taking off with this. And we did this on a Monday, and we said it's time for the week to take off. Like come aboard our airplane for a ride. So they're going to take off. It's so simple. It's very little, but people loved it, and they shared it. They just shared it over and over again. It had a reach of about 220,000. So it's very simple, but right, like they see that, and they see that cockpit, and they say, I want to go for a ride on Monday morning. So now they're flying over Hawaii, which is not bad for a Monday morning. So very simple, right? So that just reiterates the point where we're talking about relevant, timely, engaging content, right? Those are our three things, and that's what builds our place that people want to go. Relevant, timely, engaging. So, and that's part of something. So we have a place to go because we're providing content that has baby seals and babies, but people still want to see cheesy birthday graphics instead. So what does that mean that we have people there? We get to now engage with them. So what does it truly mean to engage? And if you were me, the administrator, I would come to this post, and what's the number that you see there? What are you looking for here? People reached. And we can kind of use that as like a stepping stone to go deeper into analysis. So based off the number I gave you before, 1 million people reached, 220,000 people reached, would this be a successful post to you? If you were me and I had to say to your boss, today we did 50,000 people reach, but yesterday we did 1 million, would this be successful? No, right. So one of the things that this really drove home to me is the level of community that is happening and how data needs to be supplemented by the storytelling aspect. So I'd like to use this example. This is a homecoming. So as long as ships have been going out to sea, we've had people coming home to loved ones. And this is a crew member that's coming home to their little boy. And we have at the top, we have messaging, what they did. So we're able to tell people in a really accessible way, you're a member of the American public. They did evolutions, they did training drills, and they intercepted contraband. Contraband is like marijuana, cocaine, weapons, cash, people, contraband. So I could tell you what they did. I put a picture of a homecoming, and then we provided a link where you can go to amplify more information if you're interested in going more into depth. And so I see this, and I'm like, this is a homecoming hug. Why don't people like this? It's only 53,000 people. But the numbers really don't tell the full story. And so that's when I talk about you can't be afraid to go into the qualitative to talk about the level of community and the level of engagement and to really show what a successful post is. So first we'll look at this quote, this comment that came in. So this comment is, oh my goodness, I almost cried. This is my son running towards my husband. We couldn't wait to hug daddy. So we have the mom who saw this as a surprise, and there it is, her post is there. And then all these people are like coming around her to congratulate her and said, you just made me cry, and that's a special moment, that's so sweet. And all these people, 127 people liked her. And like, has anyone communicated with a brand page before? Like I go on to a local page or brand, no? Has anyone, you've saying yes. Where did you, what brand did you try to talk to? Sorry. Yes, yes. Exactly.
And I've said something, about a problem with email,
Mm-hmm.
and then the customer service representative, I guess like the target person will reach out to me and say, and comment, and other people will comment on it.
Yeah. So did you feel like a sense of community when you went there from Target? So they're doing a great job, right? You want to come back and express that. If I'm this person, I see 127 people liked what I said, and they're saying congratulations, and they're saying that I made them cry, and they're saying that they're happy that my husband is home, and that he's too cute, and this is a touching moment, and I should put this picture on my house. That's really great. I would want to be part of this community. I would want to comment on this page. I would want to come back and see what other people are talking about. So then we move into another comment that came on the stream, and this is Coasties Rock, right? Very generic, very simple statement. But Roxanne Watson, she is part of our community, and she was reached out to us a while back, and she has the heart of a Coast Guardsman in her. So there was a young boy, Michael Bovell, that served, and he was in a car accident, or a motorcycle accident, and she had his heart transplant. So she comes to our page every day to comment on what we're doing as a Coast Guard, because she feels she is part of this Coast Guard family. And so we have had her do interviews with us. We've posted her stories. We've talked with her via email. There's a picture of her and her son. And so she's part of our community too. And she's talking about this post that we rock, that we're awesome. And then you move further into this top. There's a plank owner. A plank owner is the person who first crew member of the ship. And then you're getting somebody that was a veteran of this ship. And then you're getting another veteran. And then the last one is another family member who's a Coast Guard wife and a military brat. And she's saying that she loves homecomings. So in this one simple post, you've got family members, plank owners, veterans, women, a woman who is part of the Coast Guard family. So when you look at it as a story, as far as these people that come together and really engage and talk at a deeper level, right? Like these are meaningful comments that people are going out of their way to spend time to talk and connect with other people on this page. So I say 53,000, I see 53,000, I'm like, I need to try better. And then I look at the other side of the qualitative and I say, this is really great. This has built a community. This has built a place that people want to go to engage not just with the Coast Guard, but with each other. And so that's what we talk about building a community. Does that make sense? So one last shot of the picture because it's so cute. So now we're going to take a look at how building a community and then engaging with them over time in meaningful ways plays out through the lens of Hurricane Sandy. So Hurricane Sandy was in October 2012, and it came down the eastern seaboard of the United States during the final week of October 2012. And it would prove to be a storm of historic proportions, killing about nearly 300 people in 7 countries and inflicting more than $75 billion in damage. Throughout this process, the Coast Guard pre-deployed assets. Here's a picture of our boats in Cape May getting underway. We pre-deploy, meaning our assets leave before the storm comes so we can come back in to save you. We also responded during the storm. And this is an air crew rescuing 3 people from the rooftop of their flooded home. And then we also informed the public with more information after the hurricane. After a hurricane comes through, there's storm surges and flooding. So throughout this process, as we're pre-deploying assets, responding, and informing the public during the largest Atlantic hurricane in recent record, the Coast Guard engaged in our official tools, and in the end, our team saw firsthand how having an established presence and a community resulted in a community of action, that they took action through this crisis. We had the ability to not only tell our story and tell about our mission, but our fans, followers, supporters, and friends actually helped us and enabled us to further disseminate that information. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about a community of action. And when they disseminate our information, they're enabling our mission, right? So in the weeks preceding landfall, we discussed our strategic communication priorities before, during, and after the storm. And we incorporated lessons learned from other storms, and we looked at, of all of our priorities and all of our communication across all of our tools, we had one thing in mind. What do you think that one thing was? What was the one thing that we wanted to communicate through all of our tools, through all of our messages across our entire brand? I hear a little bit of mumbling, but I can't hear anything. Anyone on this side of the room? We have to get a word before we keep going. What did I want to communicate? I'm sitting there on my laptop, and the storm is about to hit, and I'm going to be communicating to the American public throughout the whole storm. What do I want to communicate? The one word that's going to anchor everything we communicate. What? Who said that? You're on the team too. Come on. Great. So safety. So with every tweet, post, video, whatever we put out there, we use that information to equip citizens with life-saving information. And what's key here is that it didn't have to be somebody who is in New Jersey, right, because of our networks. We could communicate with an aunt in Omaha, Nebraska, and she's going to be able to share that information with somebody she knows on the East Coast. So when we put out port closure information, when somebody asked us if y'all ready, maybe that person was from Tennessee, when they asked us if we're ready, we said we're ready, and we passed information to say we hope they're ready as well. We provided information on where to go get the app, along with a picture of a flooded town. And then we further provided information on what this is a rescue swimmer in downtown New Jersey. It's like rescue swimmer in a suburb. It's a very powerful picture to see, right? So every time we did a communication, we geared it with safety information to help the public stay safe, right? And so that leads us to this. Real quickly, talking about that safety information, reiterating about our networks and how people who are sharing these things, you think about when there is a crisis here. Say there is a tornado or a flood. How do you hear about that? Where do you get your information from? Anybody? National Weather Service? Who's that? You go to the National Weather Service? It's pretty impressive. They have a good app, yeah. Where do you get information from? NOAA, okay. Your family. So I live in Washington, D.C., and every time the Capitol closes for a suspicious package, every time anthrax was discovered in some office building, my mom calls me. Like, she doesn't even have Twitter, and she finds out these things before me, and I'm in, like, the very city. So that's just because you, 21-year-old grad student in New York City, may not be following the U.S. Coast Guard's Facebook page. They may not be following us on Twitter, but maybe their friends or family are. And so we're pushing out this information. They can share that with the people, because that's who they hear it from. So sometimes our messages can't be connected directly online to the person, but through social sharing that has existed over time, like phone calls and in person, we're able to, or somebody could fax their family member, they could share that information. So this is a picture of the HMS Bounty. This kind of created a a really great point for the Coast Guard to share who it is that we do and what is in our organizational DNA. And on October 29th, the same day the storm made landfall in New Jersey, the Coast Guard crews responded to the sinking of this tall ship, HMS Bounty. It's a famous ship that was used in a few movies that you might have seen. It sank 90 miles off the coast of North Carolina. On the ship, there were sailors, and we rescued all but 2 of the sailors, 14 of them. So I'm huddled over my laptop, and I see that this mission is happening. The hurricane's just about to hit, and everyone in New York and New Jersey is literally freaking out. This huge, right, you saw the big thing, it's the entire seaboard. And I have National Command Center alerts. I'm plugged into the National Command Center. So I'm seeing real time what's happening. And then I've got Twitter. How many tweets came out before, during, after Hurricane Sandy that related to Hurricane Sandy? No idea? You can Google it, maybe, somebody. How many? Thousands? Hundreds of thousands? Millions? Tens of millions? 20 million. 20 million. One of the most tweeted events in recent times, right? So we've got National Command Center feed coming in real time on my phone. We've got tweets coming in on my laptop through Hootsuite. We've got video and photos coming in through a defense video imagery distribution system. It's how I get photos from the field. They come in through defense, right? So what would you do if you were me and you're huddled over your laptop and you can't go into work because the government's closed because they want everyone to stay home? So I'm sitting in my apartment by myself, and I've got Twitter, I've got the National Command Center feed, I've got video, I've got photos, and I've got 5 tools at my disposal, right? I've got Facebook, Flickr, YouTube, and the blog. Who here wants to say what they would do first? And why? Anybody?
I'd probably tweet.
You'd probably tweet. Okay,
The easiest thing to reach the ones and it's simple and straightforward.
great. And one of the things, he's bringing the microphone. For those that don't hear or that were online or at Ustream, she said that she would tweet because it's simple, lowest barrier, I would say, right? Like just one simple statement. And what's great about Twitter is that it's like, you don't have to follow me. You can be following a hashtag and you can see what I'm saying, right? So I can reach potentially people that may not be following at USCG. Who else? What else would you guys do? What would you share and where? Does anyone agree with Twitter? What else? Let's hear some other opinions.
I mean, I'd probably use Instagram since you have access to all the field photos and probably show the preparations that the Coast Guard is making for the hurricane, especially since as it gets closer, people start to freak out more.
Yes, and that's a great point. Unfortunately, I did not have Instagram. I just wrote the paper to get us to get Instagram in January, so a year from now. But that's great. Why? But I'm going to key off what you said here, Instagram. What makes Instagram so compelling?
For me, it's like Twitter with pictures.
Twitter with pictures, right?
It has low barriers to entry. People can follow hashtags.
Got it. So we said she wants to use Twitter because it's instantaneous. I can put something out and the masses can see it. And you want to use Instagram because it's the same idea but with pictures, right? So you have this case and you know what happens. And so I'm sitting here. I don't have Instagram at my disposal, but I do have Twitter. Any other ideas about what you would do? You have video, photo, story, information. You've seen the press release ready to go. 14 people were just rescued. Okay. So what I did is I chose video. But that's why I'm keen on what you said about Instagram, right? Because it's the picture. So I knew what we did was cool. It's not every day that a Coast Guard helicopter flies out in a hurricane and rescues 14 people. So if I said that on a tweet, that's pretty cool. But am I going to capture people's attention of what really happened? Probably not. But so I was like, I have the video. So I'm going to put out the video in its most raw form, and I'm going to upload it to YouTube, and then I'm going to tweet it. So I did a combination of multimedia and Twitter. So that's what happened there. So what happened was really incredible to see. We had people like the Joint Staff. These are traditional champions of the Coast Guard who talk about us, but maybe not all the time. The joint staff of all the DoD tweeted saying we're superheroes. The Navy was talking about us. Congressionals started saying things. Senator Kay Hagan, Chuck Schumer. They said all these things about this video. Then non-traditional people that usually don't talk about us. So Gawker Media, this is Deadspin, a sports blog, was talking about us. He's an editor at the New York Times. Then we've got celebrities. Richard Branson, he's never talked about the Coast Guard except for this one moment, which is very cool. So incredible video. Richard Branson has millions of followers, and he said it's an incredible video. Holly Robinson Peete never talked about the Coast Guard, but she talked about the Coast Guard in this moment. And then Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe talked about our thing too. What's really funny about this is that just 2 weeks before this, he had gone kayaking, and he had not come back. His friend, he did not file a float plan, and we didn't know where he was. So they called the Coast Guard. He was there filming a movie, and we went and rescued him. And for a while, he was like sharing all kinds of stuff about the Coast Guard. So I was kind of making jokes that there's no better brand ambassador than somebody who saved their life, especially Russell Crowe. So he's talking here about how he's going to donate on behalf of the Seth. This is the guy that rescued him. So it's kind of great. So we've got our non-traditional, we've got congressionals, we've got traditional people, and then we've got celebrities talking about us. But probably the biggest win was when YouTube themselves tweeted about us. So YouTube, probably one of the most followed accounts on Twitter right now. They pick a video of the day, and this was a video of the day. And so you can see here what I really liked was it was raw footage, and because that's what I was going for. I just wanted the raw, compelling action. And then they just said that we were rescuing people from Sandy. So I'll talk about this in just a little second, but I wanted to talk about the moment where all this information was coming in that I didn't let it sit. And what I did was I took that video, it was 11 minutes, and I put it out there just in its entirety. So here is the small clip of the video. This is how they come into defense. I usually get rid of this, but again, I put it out there in its entirety. Because by now, a lot of people have dropped off because we don't have a low time span. So I'll show you guys this video. This is the raft. There's 2 rafts that the sailors were in.
Roger, still getting this up.
So the rescue swimmer just had pulled out one of the sailors. He's got it.
Back here. Altitude.
That means that they're flying too low and the wave crests are coming up and hitting the altitude meters.
Okay.
So, Ray, this is really compelling. This is actually happening. This actually happened within minutes after they landed. I was going to wait. There's a moment. It's really... So you can really see the waves and the turmoil. And again, this is in the midst of a hurricane. After this first rescue, the wave had pulled him so much that he... here's a cabin camera. So this is in all of our helicopters as well. The rescue swimmer, the waves had pulled him so far away from the raft, they had to find the swimmer and they had to pull him back closer to the raft because it would take him too long to swim back to it. And then in a second, you'll see back here, the raft actually flipped over from the waves. So the raft flips over and then people are upside down in the raft trying to get rescued. So there's 11 minutes of this. And it was perhaps our biggest success of the day that drove home the point when you have all this information that you need to share it. Our YouTube video had more than 1 million hits in 24 hours. So it's truly a viral video when you've got more than 1 million people looking at your content. So these are just a couple seconds of it. Here's where they're trying to get the swimmer back to the raft because he's not going to be able to make it. Then you see the raft's upside down. It's getting just like rocked. So what was what are the 3 things I said when we post stuff? What are we thinking about when we post stuff on our sites? Yes. And do you think this achieves any of those? Yes. Which one do you think it achieves? All of them, great. So and that drove home the point, relevant, timely, engaging. Every single time we're doing these posts, relevant, timely, engaging, you can see that those really succeed. So getting in the video drove out views, comments, engagement, but more importantly, what it taught to me was that crunch for time, where I was like, something needs to happen, needs to get out. It forced us to be more authentic. And when I say it forced us to be more authentic, and that's why I wanted to draw attention to the fact that it was raw video. So this is 11 minutes. That's the longest video ever on YouTube, not really. But it's long, right? Like, so when you're thinking about brands and marketing and putting out content, a lot of people say that something has to be 30 seconds. It has to be a meme. It has to be a picture, right? But here, we put out something that was 11 minutes, and it proved that when you put out real, raw, authentic content, and it's engaging, people are still going to look at it, regardless of how long it is. Does that make sense? So let's give a little stop to this. So any questions? No? Okay. So it proved that we didn't have to put out 30 seconds. We didn't have to put out a polished product. We didn't have to make it look pretty. We didn't have to put cool techno music in the background and have all these like crazy things happening, because there's already crazy things happening in the video. So in the community of action that we created, they're disseminating our messages, that are sharing our content, that are helping keep people safe. This was a very real thing for people to see, that this is the severity of the storm. Remember, this happened before the hurricane made landfall. So all of these millions of views happened before the hurricane hit. And so we like to think that that was like a big awakening for people to say this is real, and this is a very visual reminder of that. And so people wanted more. And so after that, the rescue aboard the Bounty and the Coast Guard's operations during Sandy were truly one of the enduring images of that hurricane. And what really solidified that was our crossover successes. And this here is a picture, but it highlights the need for you as on social media tools to look outside of your own tools. So you can tell the story on your own tools, but you can also use other people's accounts, messages, places to share your story as well. And this is a picture because of, in the aftermath of the storm, Al Roker Entertainment and the Weather Channel, they approached the Coast Guard's Motion Pictures office, and they asked to do a special on the crew. And it was all attributed to the compelling imagery that we put out there. And so they did an hour-long special. And this hour-long special happened 2.5 months after the storm. So again, we're continuing that message. That's very powerful, right? So something on social media lasts seconds, hours, maybe a day. But this is still being talked about 2.5, 3 months later. And the special debuted in December and included interviews with the air crews, the survivors, the families. And so in conjunction with the Weather Channel special, they also asked us to host a live chat with 1.4 million of their fans. And it wasn't, hey, answer questions. It was, hey, answer questions on our page. They let us go to theweatherchannel.com's page. So again, we're not focusing on just using your own stuff. Go out there and use other people's. So in conjunction with that, we did an hour-long live chat. And usually I do the chat because I know how to answer questions and I know how to use the tools. And we agreed that the best person to do it would be the actual pilot. So we had the actual pilot. Here's the post that introduced the live chat. And the Lieutenant Jenny Fields was one of the pilots, and she did the Q&A. She was featured, and here's just an example. So she's just answering just a really open, honest question. He says, how does your mindset change on a dime? And so I couldn't answer that question. I couldn't say what it was like where 1 second you're sleeping and the next second you're out there in a hurricane rescuing people. So she could. And that's really at the level of where we want to provide that engagement, is to be honest and to humanize our brand, to humanize our organization. And I couldn't do that. Jenny Fields could. And I just wanted to drive home that point that particularly during crossover successes, or particularly when you're using other people's accounts and brands, you can really dig down and humanize your brand in ways that many people don't capitalize on. And it's one of the bigger successes. So this is another example. So this is a quote. It says, "Hi, I'm Dan. I heard you guys need a ride." And this is what our rescue swimmer said to the survivors when he approached their life raft. And this is all recorded and documented, and we've seen it. And what's great about this is this adds that human element. And this also, when we put this message out there on our social media tools, and it was used by the president during his speech thanking during Hurricane Sandy, and again during the 4th of July. And the rescue swimmer got to go to an event there. And that's, people can grab onto that. People can grab onto that human level that really gives a voice and a name and a face to the rescuer. It's not big Coast Guard, it's Dan Todd, who has a sense of humor during a crisis that kind of was there for those people, that relaxed them when they were in a time of stress and a time of need. So my line for that is, find your Dan and let them share their story, because they're part of your organization. So that leads us to a couple takeaways you guys can have. Build, engage, activate, right? That's the whole focus of what we've got here. So you want to build a place where people want to be, then you want to engage them, and then you want to activate them. When you have a crisis, give them a purpose. You also want to be timely, relevant, and engaging. And along with that relevance, and along with that timeliness, along with that engaging content, you want to keep your voice authentic. And share content with your community that makes sense. That's part of authenticity. So today I was trying to figure out what to say about April Fools. We're not very funny. Our channel isn't funny. We post content that is relevant to the Coast Guard. And what we do is serious. We save lives, and we do have a sense of humor, but I just couldn't work it, right? I'm not going to try to do an April Fool's Day joke. So put a picture up of an icebreaker that says this ice is no joke, because there's ice that's 8 feet thick still on the Great Lakes that our cutters, we have a domestic ice breaking mission that not a lot of people know about, and it was a great way for us to share an image and a message that people may not know through the timeliness of April Fools, but is authentic and content that makes sense. If I try to play a joke on our fans, they're like, what's going on here? What are you talking about? And just be authentic and make sense. And then that leads us to a community of action, and this is where I wanted to end my planned remarks. When you talk about a community of action, you're really talking about a team that can amplify critical information. And for us, that's to protect lives and property. And that's the root of what we do, to protect lives and property. But for you and your organization, or for what you manage, it can be something that it drives people towards a purpose, but you can't expect that to happen from the beginning of a crisis. That has to happen before. So are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question about your process and your legal process in making that decision. So you're in your home by yourself, and you have access, obviously, to all the tools. What's the process, or do you actually have 100% authority to decide what you're going to upload and what's the content, or is there a legal process, and of whatever you can explain on this?
Right. So our team is at headquarters is made up of 4 people. So there's my supervisor, Chris Lagan, chief of social media. Then there's myself. I put all the content on all the sites. And then there's a teammate that we have that works with the Maritime Public. So she just developed a blog, so she's doing that. A little bit separate from our content. They just started the blog. And then there's a fourth person that does multimedia and video editing on a day-to-day basis. Takes the heavy lift off of me. On something like Sandy, or something like flooding, or with the students I had during lunch, there was an icebreaker that we sent down to the Antarctic to help free other icebreakers. When these things are happening, there's a buildup. You get the first alert from the National Weather Service. You get the second alert. You have governors declaring early states of emergency, those kinds of things. So there's a buildup there, and as that's happening, we're creating that plan. So we kind of know what content we're going to put out. That I was saying we really are going to hone in on safety. But as far as the actual tactical execution of that, there is no level of review. So what I put out is just what's out there. So we have themes, we have ideas, we have hurricanes. A lot of people don't know about storm surges. So they're like, oh, the hurricane's gone, it's not raining anymore, I'm going to go home, and then their car gets wiped out because of flooding, because there's a storm surge. So we know we want to communicate that kind of message after it's hit landfall, not before, because before we want to tell them to get their hurricane kit ready. Those kinds of things are already planned, but the actual execution happens ad hoc on the content manager, which is me. Yes, ma'am.
Really for our students who are here. Could you just elaborate about the strategies versus the tactics? So
Okay.
the use of social media to communicate obviously is more tactical, but the planning and the development of strategic messages that may go before that?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I'm at the headquarters level and I have like the headquarters tools. I'm big Coast Guard is what we call that. And then there's things that are happening at the local level that are at the port. So say, for example, in this case, the port of Hampton Roads is in Virginia. They closed their port. They work with mayors and the captain down there. And then our boats, I'm kind of explaining the process for the Coast Guard to help give context to our strategy. So you've got port closures happening. The Coast Guard's leaving because we want our stuff to be safe so we can come back in. Then we've got our air stations leaving because their hangar can't withstand the hurricane force winds. Then they're going to come back. And then you've got people, reservists coming in, National Guards getting called in, right? So all this is happening like even before a hurricane hits. And we know it's going to happen. And that is part of our strategy because they're communicating at that level. When a mayor's office calls the Coast Guard captain of the port in Hampton Roads, that's the communication. That's a different kind of communication that's social media, but it's still part of our overall strategy. So our strategy, you said particularly to the students, our strategy isn't tweet about the port closure. Our strategy is engage with our port stakeholders to inform mariners when the port's opening and closing, because that's their livelihoods too, right? So our strategy would be to work with port stakeholders, and then the other strategy we work with the American taxpayer to make sure they're safe. So we've got different audiences in this strategy as well, and then we talk about how the tactical level would be down here. So it would be captain of the port, call the mayor. Headquarters social media, send out a tweet about the port closure. So we're still in that same strategy, but we're doing two different tactical things. So the strategy is not send out tweets about the port closure, right? The strategy is to keep people informed and then go from there using those tools. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, and what kind of traditional media are you using simultaneously?
Traditional media, we still do have a press room, so it's uscgnews.com. It has an RSS feed too, so we put out press releases through a system. And port closures, like we have like a template, you fill in and then hit send. Now, I'm not doing it at my level, and nor is headquarters doing a press release. Again, that's happening at the local level. Press releases come from headquarters if it's kind of affecting the entire Coast Guard. So there is a lot of coordination that we have to do with our district offices is what we call that. So our 5th Coast Guard district oversees that area, and so we work with them. In this case, it was particularly interesting because we had to work with the 7th Coast Guard district, the 5th Coast Guard district, and the 1st Coast Guard district, which are along the eastern seaboard. And that's what we call Atlantic area. So 11 missions, Atlantic area, PAC area. When we are communicating, we are doing that through email or through phone calls. And sometimes even I know the pilots or I know people at certain units, so I'll try to talk to them too. Like, send me the picture. I know you took one of yourself launching in this hurricane. So we work with unit levels sometimes too if we need to. Because we have a small dedicated group of professionals that work in the Coast Guard. Our organization is 30,000 people. Only 70 people are full-time photojournalists and journalists. So only 70 people are capturing the mission of 30,000 people. And those are the same people that have to do media relations and answer the phone call from the local reporter. And those are the same people that have to issue the press release. And it's the same person that's calling community groups to say that they'll help them in the shelter afterwards. So those public affairs specialists at the local level do all of that. So sometimes if I can't get through with them, I'll work directly with the unit. Yes.
With respect to the Sandy rescue video, is there any way for you to track how many people watched the entire video?
Yes,
and
there is.
Does that come into like your evaluation of the success of the video?
I feel like you're a plant here because one of my favorite things to talk about is YouTube analytics. And YouTube Analytics are free and super available. And so there is this, so the quick answer is yes, you can look, and that's called audience retention. And audience retention is how I measure video engagement. So somebody, a view, 1.4 million in 24 hours, that's not engaging. That's just reach. How engaged were they with the video? That's audience retention. And YouTube will tell you the average retention size of a video of that same length. They'll tell you the average retention size for men, for women, for age, whatever. It's all there. To show you as an example, we have this video. It's a drug bust, and it's the bane of my existence because every year it gets another million views. It's terrible, and it's like has Miami Vice music in the background. It was made in like 2001. I don't even know why it's on there. I kind of want to delete it, but it would kill a lot of our channel views, which decreases our Google SEO. Anyways, so when you watch it, it has whatever million views. That's excellent, right? But when you look into the audience retention, I think the average audience retention by the end of the video is, I think, less than 10%, meaning less than 10% of the people have watched it. Now, when you've got something like this, early on during when it first happened, you can put in, along with audience retention, you can put in time frame. So within that first month, audience retention was very high because people watched the whole thing as it was happening. As it's gone on, as it's been 2 years later, audience retention dips to about 40% by the end of the video, which is not bad for 11 minutes. So a lot of times, and you can help you can use that to help your strategies for video. So say somebody approaches me and it said, it's Alcohol Awareness Month. It's April, it's Alcohol Awareness Month in April. We need you to make a video, and the video is gonna have our vice president talking about alcohol safety. And his command message is at minute 2 and 30 seconds. And we get 1 million views on this video. That's great. You can tell, oh, we got 1 million views, 1 million people saw this. But when you look at the audience retention, and then you see that it dips to 8% at minute 2:33, and everyone's tuned out by then, and no one's watched that command message. That is data that's right there that says these people did not listen to your message because they're not even there watching the video. So I will use that a lot with audience retention. A video that gets 2,000 views, it's like wimpy. But if 100% of people watch that, that's better. That means they were fully engaged with that video. That video is more engaging, it's more relevant to them than a video where 1 million people saw it and they only saw 10 seconds of it. They barely saw the intro. So I use that a lot when I'm trying to provide that qualitative data, that storytelling aspect, that people liked this video more, and I use audience retention for that. I could talk about YouTube Analytics all day. Anything else?
Just a small detail follow-up to that. Can you see if the same person is rewatching it?
Well, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Can you tell if the same person is rewatching it?
Yes, there's unique visitors versus people reached versus people watched versus.
And what does that mean for the content
Yes.
if
Oh,
the same person is rewatching it for you?
Yes. So I didn't hear the second question. What was that?
Oh, what does it mean for you when someone's rewatching it over and over again? What does that? What do you do with? What do you do with that information?
Yeah. That means they're extra engaged. You can also see a video that's really, when I get really excited, in the audience retention profile, you can see that sometimes the video goes to like 130%, meaning at the end, people actually rewound it and watched it again. So usually it's 100%. A video, you watch it and then you're done. But when a video goes over 100%, it means people are rewinding it and you can see it too. So we have a video, another video of a drug bust that's maybe 20 seconds long, and it has over 140% because there's a part where a gun blows out the outboard engine, and people rewind to that because they want to see that outboard explosion. And so you can see it's like people dropped off on board. Oh my gosh, it goes up to 140%, and it's the chart does that because people rewound it because they want to keep seeing it over and over again. So if you have a video that's over 100%, that's a winner. Even if only 200 people saw it, because it means those 200 people kept watching it over and over and over again. Like a fourth of those people did that. So, yes.
First, the talk is fascinating. My students are on Facebook yelling at each other about what the Coast Guard's goals are and should be, and which platforms they should use. I wish they could just get from West Virginia here, like right now, because they're really enjoying this. So, Right. I mean, they saw the video, right?
They're arguing what our priorities shouldn't be.
I really want to ask your opinion about this discussion of reach versus audience, right? Because it's one that, especially in the age of big data, and I find myself, I'm a data miner, so I do a lot of big data, large quantitative work. And I'm the first to admit that doesn't always tell us very many things.
Right.
And I wonder, you've hit on one hand, you've said that one of the great things about social media is that messages don't have to stay in a community, but they can go back to a community, right? That it is that grandmother in Topeka, Kansas, who's just watching TV, who is texting all of her friends back home and saying, hey, if you're not watching news, watch the news.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself having to balance out this notion of spread versus community, or do different tools or different messages just lend themselves more to one? And if so, do you plan that in, or is one more important than the other at the broadest level of the Coast Guard social media plan?
There's a lot of questions there. I'll try to tackle two that came out for me, where you were talking about balancing the existing community versus outside community. We obviously put a higher level of effort into the existing community. So when I see a comment on Facebook that came in from somebody I know, I'm going to grab onto that comment and say, thanks for stopping by again. I talk to them because I recognize their names. People come to our page like, my daughter's at boot camp, and then a month later they're like, I like this picture. I'm like, how's your daughter doing at boot camp? Like, we talk to them like that because we want them to build that community there. But on the same side, when something like happens where we have all the national attention on us, we do try to bring those people in because we want them to become brand ambassadors. Like, I want you two guys to become brand ambassadors and say we have 11 statutory missions and we're really important to the nation. We try to tell people that through our story that are kind of the outsiders that wouldn't normally know that. I don't know if that helped your question, answer your question.
It does. It sounds like a lot about social capital, right?
Yeah,
It's like, how can we get this message out to...
Right, and so when we're talking about reach, Facebook specifically, Twitter is more difficult. Twitter does not say where your reach is going. Facebook can tell you if your reach is organic or organic versus viral. Organic means, say I have a post of 200,000 reach. Facebook will tell me 10,000 people, already fans of your page, saw that versus 180,000 saw it that were viral. Meaning all of those people are people that never have seen Coast Guard content before. So that means that whatever we did was shared to a community that doesn't normally see our things. So for example, Veterans Day is when we see a high viral reach because there's a lot of people that have served that want other people to know about Veterans Day. So they share and it goes to networks that normally we don't have. Whereas maybe a post like today or yesterday, I think, of a boat, that was very, that was just organic. That was already existing to our page because it's about a boat and people were just talking about, I was on that boat too, and then just keep talking about it there. So when it does mean something different to me as the community manager to see what post has more reach and how that breaks down organic versus viral. Is that kind of better? Anything else? Any questions? Yes, sir.
I'll ask another one.
Okay.
With your research, I can sure you're doing a great presentation. Have you taken the research to the next level where you're trying to measure of your engaged community, how you're defining engaged, is more aware of appropriate behaviors during a storm, more likely to fill out the float plan.
Right.
More, so they're demonstrating positive behavioral changes that you also more likely to advocate for you when you're, trying to during appropriation time, et cetera.
Right. Yes. So that's a great question. I'll say you said like going further, right? So we have this really great place people come, and it's not huge. We have 250,000 fans on Facebook. The other branches of the armed forces have 2 million plus. So they dwarf what we're doing. But at the same time, it lets us keep a more focus on our community. And the problem is to dig down deeper, we need to talk about the role of the government in general and in going into people's personally identifiable information and actually reaching to them. So there's a lot of things the government can do, but it's a certain level of ethics or responsibility of the government to do something with information or not do something with information. And so that kind of is explain in a little bit to where it goes from there. I will tell you that while we have that community to see the measure of effectiveness is just anecdotal right now. We do have a few people. For example, we had a guest blogger. He wrote on our Facebook page, I really like these tips. And I was like, write me, he has a blog, and I'm like, write me a story about hunting tips on the ice. So then he wrote a story, and then he wrote another one about, we have this program where you have a kayak, and there's a sticker. And you're supposed to put the sticker on your kayak that says, if found, call this number. Because if the Coast Guard sees a kayak floating on this river right now, we have to go out and launch a search because we don't know if that kayak floated off a dock or if somebody's in the water right now. So there's a sticker that's waterproof and free and whatnot. And so this blogger made it his mission to go to all his local marinas to tell them, when you sell a kayak, please give them the sticker. And so that's kind of a real world application of what a brand ambassador is that started online, that started on Twitter. And we were able to share his message, but he was able to share ours. So that's kind of a real world application of taking a brand ambassador online and putting it into the real world. But again, that's anecdotal and it's not data driven. And lastly, I would say the next step for us would be how to integrate this into our actual operations. So right now we're educating and informing to support the mission, to kind of enable the mission, but we're not affecting the actual mission. And so that's kind of where we're going, but it has lots of implications for what we do with taxpayer information, and that's where the holdup is now. Yes?
How do you balance getting the most relevant, timely, engaging content, which is probably things like rescues or, I mean, you had some graphics of birthdays, but you have 11 missions. Some of them are sexier than others. Some come with 11-minute raw footage of a rescue.
Right.
How do you balance knowing some of these missions are going to be more relevant, timely, and engaging, but you're tasked with helping to tell the full Coast Guard story?
Mm-hmm. I would say that we can, I always think that something is not engaging, and then when I put it out there, it will be to our fans. So, and so the reason, an example of that would be, we have buoy tenders, and they were featured in Dirty Jobs. This is kind of it's basically these amazing men and women who are on these huge boats that bring up the buoy, scrape off the critters, and then like put them back in the water. And make sure they're in the right place because your boat will go aground or you will get hurt, people die if the ATON navigation isn't there. That is probably one of the job and occupations that you're talking about that is less known and like less engaging. But every time we put something up there, people love it. And we kind of package it in a way that helps you relate to it. So anyone who's been on one of these boats, there's this just dreadful seafood critter, dirty smell whenever you bring up a buoy. And so we talk about that. We try to bring them in, like, it smells like a fresh day for buoy tending, like that kind of thing. And so people who know that and have been impacted by that share it with their networks, and it grows from there. So we try to find a way to have people engage with things that even aren't less familiar. But there are going to be times when we put something out there that we know. We have a video of the year competition, and the number 3 video last year, so in 2012, was like a turtle release. I was like a coastie going like this with a turtle, and everyone like went crazy and it got 3rd, and everyone was like so mad because we had like a drug bust and a rescue and AIDS navigation, but the turtle video had a turtle, so it got 3rd place. So sometimes that'll happen where it's not even a compelling video, but it just has a turtle in it. And we do living marine resources. That's part of our one of our missions. So we work a lot with manatees, marine protected species, and living marine resources. So even though it's a silly video of a turtle, maybe someone's going to make that connection now that the Coast Guard does work with marine protected species, or like the baby seal. Yeah, baby seal. So it's kind of a lot of tinkering around with how we package it to the public, is how I would say. Yes.
About how you build your strategy for developing audiences and followers?
Okay. Each tool is different. A lot of the tools did exist before I got here, and we kind of altered the strategy from there. I'll talk a little bit, it's kind of like it's a big question. So I'll talk a little bit about the most recent tool, about Instagram. And that's the one we just launched in January. And I'm doing a lot of things, it's okay, I can have a blue screen. I'm doing a lot of things each and every day, and I'm telling my boss, we need to get on Instagram. It's the most used tool mobily right now over even Twitter. So we need to be there, and this is why, and I told them why. And they're like, okay, fine, you can do Instagram. Now, and they entered a federal friendly service terms of use, which is good. We need that to be able to use a tool as a government agency. So now they're like, okay, go use it. Well, that's difficult for me, and we talked about a little bit about this earlier, because I already have all these other tools I'm putting content on. So I'm thinking, strategy-wise, why do people like Instagram? So who here uses Instagram? Yeah, okay, and the blue shirt. Why do you like Instagram?
I like to the pictures, but if I want to read into it, read the comments, but like maybe I can split through it.
Right.
It's something interesting, I'll stop.
Right. So who else uses it because they like to look at all the pictures? Everybody. So someone else raise your hand if they use Instagram. What makes you stop for a picture on Instagram?
Like you said, I think we're just really visual.
Visual. Right. So what about that? What about something visually makes you want to stop? Because right, I do Instagram too. I'm like flip, flip, flip. What makes you stop right there?
I guess off the top of my head, like if I can relate to it or
yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. And that's why people love it, right? The relatability and the thing that makes it human. So a lot of these tools, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, it's becoming really brand centric. Like, look at us, buy this. Here's a picture of a shoe. Isn't it cool? Like, click like if you agree. Like, it's very brand driven. And what's great about Instagram is there is no algorithm to crack like Facebook. There is no giant world of tweets out there that you can't find. Instagram is you like it, you see it, it's there. And so when you have those photos, you can create something that is relatable, and it's only mobile, right? So I can't be sitting at my desk at headquarters being like, it's a great day in the Great Lakes, because I don't have that photo. It has to be on my mobile phone. So when we establish a strategy, when you're talking about building a strategy, we're not building it and making a tool just to have it, a presence there. We're building it because we want it to be something different that we don't already have. And what's different is the relatability. We want this tool to be something that people can connect with on a deeper level than any of our other tools. So what we did is we created policy where we can give it to anybody in the Coast Guard and they have it for a week. So if you go to our Instagram account right now, it's an SK2, a storekeeper second class, and she's on Coast Guard Cutter Midget, and she's telling you what it's like on Coast Guard Cutter Midget. And she's doing that for a week. And the week before that, it was Coast Guard Cutter Eagle, which is one of our sail training ships. So it takes away the quote-unquote manpower from me, but it's also using the tool for what it's for pictures, for relatability, for visual storytelling. And it's a way that we can be more authentic as a brand. And that's what really we look at with our strategy for each of our tools. Why are people there, and how can we share our story to the way that those users are actually using the tool? And we want to create a unique insider access with our Instagram that can't be used on any other tools. So
how do you build audiences for that?
For us, it's just we launched with a campaign. It was New Year's Day, and we said New Year, New Filter. And basically each week we did a different place. And that's what kind of kept people coming back, because we're like, wait till next week when we share Cape May, which is our boot camp. And wait till the next week when we share what it's like to be a rescue swimmer. And so we kind of built a campaign, and we advertised that campaign on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. So we did a little bit of crossover on our tools, which we do for most of our campaigns. Most of our campaigns are across a lot of tools. Yes?
During Hurricane Sandy, when you guys were putting out like Twitter and Facebook posts, did you have a more specific target audience other than just taxpayers?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I say that, like I say American taxpayer, and people who do comms plan are like, that's not an audience. That's not specific audience. So we can say, in some cases, yes, that we're trying to look at some more specific constituency of that American taxpayer. But when we do put out content, we truly are really trying to engage the masses. So maybe, for example, if I wanted college students to get information, I would say are you a mom? Is your student in college? Make sure that they're safe. I might use words like that. But for them, we use that a lot for parents who have children with their life jackets when they're going out on boats. We'll try to drive messaging towards parents. But for the most part, and I know that a lot of people who do comms plans do not like that, but we do say the public, which is, I know Ms. Lynch is like the American public. But no, we do target certain posts or certain ideas to like a particular constituency. So today we did like the Great Lakes. Not a lot of people know about the Great Lakes, so I would say that that was probably trying to inform other people that aren't on the Great Lakes, but it wasn't targeted to them. Facebook does have the ability to target. Federal agencies get in trouble if you try to start targeting because you're limiting information, and it's a little bit on the marketing edge, and you're not supposed to market as a federal agency necessarily. So you should be careful with that a little bit. If you try to target, the tools allow you to target in geographic area or by gender, and you need to be careful when you do that as a federal agency.
We'll conclude our Q&A. Huge thank you to Stephanie for a wonderful session. Really insightful, and there are a ton of positive comments on Twitter too. So we have 5 very quick giveaways. Everybody likes a giveaway, right? Before we leave. So Stephanie.